All right, so welcome to another deep dive, and this time we're getting into something that's, well, kind of fundamental. It's sentence structure.
The building blocks of, well, pretty much everything we write.
Exactly. And, it might not sound super exciting at first, but trust me, we're going to make this fun. We're working from a script here all about English grammar.
But this is going to be way more engaging than just, like, flipping through a textbook.
Definitely. It's about understanding how to use those rules to make your writing, well, awesome. So, ready to dive in.
Absolutely. Where should we start?
Let's start with the absolute basics. I mean, what are we even talking about when we say sentence structure? What's the foundation?
Well, think of it this way. Every sentence is kind of like a mini building.
Okay, I like where this is going.
And every building needs a solid foundation. In sentences, that foundation comes from two key parts,
Mm-hmm.
the subject and the predicate.
Subject and predicate, the script mentions those a lot.
Yeah, they're kind of like the dynamic duo of sentence construction.
All right, so break it down for me. What's the subject?
The subject is the star of the show. It's the who or the what that the sentence is all about.
So, in the sentence, the cat naps gracefully, which, by the way, is straight from our script.
The cat would be our subject. It's who the sentence is about.
Makes sense. And the predicate.
That's the part that tells us what the subject is doing. It's the action. In our example, naps gracefully is the predicate.
So it's not just the verb naps, but also that extra detail, gracefully.
Exactly. The predicate includes the verb and all the words that go with it, giving us a more complete picture of what's happening. The script actually has this neat little formula. S plus P, simple sentence.
S plus P, simple sentence, catchy.
Right. It highlights how those two elements, subject and predicate, work together to create a basic sentence.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this all fits together. But sometimes I feel like my writing is just a jumble of words, like I'm missing that structure.
Yeah.
How do we move beyond just simple sentences?
That's where understanding the different types of sentences comes in. It's like having different blueprints for your writing.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What kind of blueprints are we talking about?
So the script outlines four main types of sentences: declarative, interrogative, imperative, and exclamatory.
4 types. How do we keep those straight?
Well, each type has a specific purpose, which makes them pretty easy to distinguish once you get the hang of it.
All right, let's start with the first one, declarative. What's that all about?
Declarative sentences are the most common type. They're basically just making a statement like, the sky is blue, or English grammar is fascinating.
Straightforward and to the point. Got it. What about interrogative? That sounds kind of like interrogation.
Well, it does involve asking questions.
Ah, so is English grammar fascinating?
Exactly.
Hmm.
They're designed to get information or spark a response. And they always end with a question mark, which is a helpful clue.
Question mark, check. Okay, what about imperative sentences?
Those are your calls to action. They give commands or make requests, like study your English grammar or please pass the salt.
Ah, so they're kind of bossy.
Well, they can be,
Yeah,
but they can also be polite requests. It depends on the tone and context.
got it. And the last one, exclamatory. That sounds kind of dramatic.
It is. Exclamatory sentences express strong emotion, excitement, or surprise. Think of them as sentences with an exclamation point.
Okay, that makes sense. So, I finally understand English grammar.
Perfect example. They add a lot of energy and emphasis to your writing.
So we've got our 2 basic parts, the subject and the predicate, and now we've got these 4 sentence types to work with. It's like we're building a house, and now we have different rooms to design.
I like that analogy. And just like houses come in different sizes and styles, sentences can also vary in complexity.
Complexity. Oh, this sounds like we're getting into the really interesting stuff. So what are the levels of complexity we need to know about?
The script talks about 3 main levels: simple, compound, and complex.
Okay, let's break those down, starting with simple. I'm guessing those are, well, simple.
They are. Simple sentences have just one independent clause. That means they express a single complete thought, like she writes. Subject, verb, done.
Short and sweet. But how do we add a little more, oomph to our writing?
That's where compound sentences come in. They allow you to connect 2 or more related ideas together.
Okay, so instead of just saying she writes, we could say she writes and she dreams. We're connecting 2 actions, 2 parts of her life.
Exactly. You've got 2 independent clauses, each with its own subject and predicate, linked together with a conjunction like and, but, or.
So it's like building a bridge between 2 separate thoughts.
That's a great way to think about it. And then we have complex sentences, which are a little more, well, Complex.
Complex sentences, complex. I see what you did there.
They introduce the idea of dependent clauses. These clauses can't stand alone as sentences, but they add crucial information and context to the main clause.
Dependent clauses, they sound a bit needy.
Think of them as adding details and explanations, like she writes because she has stories to tell.
So the because she has stories to tell part is the dependent clause. It gives us more insight into why she wrote.
Precisely. It adds depth and richness to the main idea. So now we've gone from simple sentences to these more elaborate structures, and this is just the beginning.
I know, right? We've got these building blocks, these different types, and these levels of complexity. It's like we're architects of language.
And the best part is, we're just getting started. In the next part of our deep dive, we'll put all of this knowledge into action, analyzing real-world examples and seeing how these concepts come to life.
I can't wait. I'm already starting to see the world of sentences in a whole new light. It's like, well, a whole lot more complex than I ever imagined.
That's the beauty of language, isn't it? There's always more to discover.
All right, so we're back and ready to put all this sentence structure knowledge to the test.
No more theory. Let's get practical.
Exactly. We've got our blueprints. Now let's see what we can build. So, ready for some real-world examples from the script.
Hit me with it.
Okay, here's the first one. English is a global language. Take a moment to analyze that one, everyone. What kind of sentence are we dealing with here?
Don't overthink it. Think back to those 4 types we discussed.
All right, time's up. What's the verdict?
That's a declarative sentence. Plain and simple, it's just stating a fact.
So it's like the most basic type of sentence, just laying down the information.
Exactly. No frills, just getting straight to the point.
Got it. Okay, ready for another one?
Bring it on.
All right, here we go. Do you enjoy learning new languages? Ooh, I think I know this one, but I'll let our listeners have a go. What do you think, folks? What type of sentence is that?
Pay attention to the punctuation. It can be a big clue.
Okay, time's up. What's the answer?
That one's interrogative. It's asking a question, trying to start a conversation.
The question mark at the end kind of gives it away, doesn't it?
It does. Punctuation is your friend when it comes to identifying sentence types.
Okay, let's try one that's a little more challenging. How about this? Learning a new language is challenging, but it's incredibly rewarding. Now what do we have?
This one's got a bit more going on.
It does, doesn't it? Listeners, take a moment to break this one down. Think about those levels of complexity we talked about.
How many separate ideas are being expressed here?
All right, time's up. What's the answer?
That's a compound sentence. We've got 2 indefinite clauses joined together by the word but.
So we're combining 2 complete thoughts, 2 different perspectives on learning a new language.
Exactly. And that but is key. It's showing us the contrast between the challenge and the reward.
Okay, I'm starting to see how these different structures can really add depth to our writing. All right, ready for the big leagues?
Let's do it.
Here we go. Although it can be frustrating at times, mastering a new language opens up a world of possibilities.
Whoa, that one felt complex just saying it. What do we have here?
Take your time with this one. Pay attention to how the different parts of the sentence relate to each other. All right, time's up. What's the answer?
That, my friend, is a complex sentence. We've got a main clause, mastering a new language opens up a world of possibilities, and a dependent clause, although it can be frustrating at times, adding some extra information.
So that dependent clause is like giving us some context, explaining that even though it's tough, it's worth it in the end.
Exactly. It's adding a layer of nuance to the main idea.
Wow, we've covered so much ground. Simple, compound, complex ifs. We're really starting to see how sentences work, aren't we?
We are. But, sometimes I think, why does all this even matter? I mean, sure, it's good to know the rules, but how does this actually help us in real life?
That's a great question. It's easy to get lost in the grammar jargon, but what's the point of all this?
Well, think about it this way. Understanding sentence structure isn't just about writing grammatically correct sentences. It's about communicating your ideas clearly and effectively.
So it's not just about the rules, it's about using those rules to get your point across.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whether you're writing an email, giving a presentation, or just having conversation, being able to structure your sentences well makes a huge difference.
Makes sense. So how does understanding all this grammar stuff actually help us do that?
Well, first of all, it helps with clarity. When your sentences are well structured, your ideas flow logically, and it's easier for people to understand what you're saying.
So it's like you're building a clear path for your ideas to follow, no more getting lost in a jumble of words.
Precisely. But it's not just about clarity. It's also about engagement. By using a variety of sentence types and lengths, you can make your writing more interesting and dynamic.
Ooh, I like that. It's like instead of just using the same type of sentence over and over again, you're adding some spice, some variety.
Exactly. And that variety keeps your reader hooked. But maybe the most important thing is that understanding sentence structure helps you develop your own unique voice as a writer.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's not just about following the rules, it's about using those rules to express yourself in a way that feels authentically you.
Exactly. Think of it like this. Sentence structure is a tool. You can use it to create different effects, to evoke different emotions, to shape the way your reader experiences your writing.
Wow, I never thought about it like that before. It's like sentence structure is the key to unlocking the full potential of our writing.
It really is. And the more you learn about it, the more you realize just how powerful a tool it can be. But for now, I think we've given our listeners plenty to chew on. Ready to move on to the final part of our deep dive.
Absolutely. I'm ready to see what other insights we can uncover in this fascinating world of sentence structure. Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into sentence structure, and honestly, I'm feeling a bit like a sentence superhero.
Yeah, we've definitely been through a crash course in sentence construction.
We have. We've gone from those basic building blocks all the way to like these complex structures. It's been a wild ride.
It has. But before we wrap things up, I think it's important to recap those key takeaways, make sure we're all on the same page.
Absolutely. So let's start with the foundation. What were those two essential parts of every sentence again?
Subject and predicate. Those are your bread and butter.
Right. The subject is the star, the one doing the action, and the predicate tells us what they're doing or being. And remember that cool formula? S plus P equals simple sentence.
Yeah, that's a good one to keep in your back pocket. It helps you break down even the most complicated sentences.
It does. And then we moved on to those, what were they called? Sentence types.
Yep, four main types: declarative, interrogative, imperative, and exclamatory.
Right. Declarative, those are your basic statements, just laying down the facts. And then interrogative, those are your question sentences.
Always end with a question mark. Can't forget that.
Nope. And then there were the imperative sentences. Those are the ones that give commands or make requests.
Like, go study your sentence structure.
Exactly. And finally, the exclamatory sentences, those are the ones that, well, add a little drama.
Lots of emotion packed into those. All right, so we've got our basic parts, our types, but then we went a step further, didn't we? Talked about how those sentences can be, well, simple or not so simple.
Right. We talk about levels of complexity. Simple, compound, and complex. Those were fun to play around with.
Yeah, simple sentences, those are your one-clause wonders,
Yeah.
just a single complete thought.
Straight to the point.
Yeah.
But then we learned how to combine those thoughts with, like, compound sentences.
Two or more independent clauses linked together with a conjunction, suddenly you're expressing multiple ideas in one sentence.
It's like magic. And then, of course, the complex sentences, those are the ones with the dependent clauses, adding all those extra layers of information.
It's like building a house. You start with the foundation, then you add the rooms, and then you start decorating.
I love that analogy. So we've got all these tools now, all this knowledge about how to construct sentences. But I think what really struck me was, like, the purpose behind it all.
Yeah, it's not just about memorizing grammar rules. It's about using those rules to communicate effectively.
Exactly. It's about being able to express your ideas clearly, persuasively, in a way that, well, people actually want to read.
It's about making your writing sing. And the more you understand about sentence structure, the more control you have over that process.
I totally agree. This whole deep dive has been like a revelation. I'm seeing sentences everywhere now, analyzing them, thinking about how they're constructed. It's a bit addicting, actually.
I know what you mean. But, the real learning happens when you start applying all of this to your own writing.
So what advice would you give to our listeners who are like eager to put all this newfound knowledge into practice?
Well, I'd say, first of all, just pay attention. Notice how different writers use sentence structure to create different effects.
It's like becoming a sentence detective.
Exactly. And then don't be afraid to experiment. Play around with different sentence types, lengths, structures. See what happens when you break the rules a little bit.
It's about finding your own voice, your own style.
Precisely. And remember, there's no right or wrong answer when it comes to writing. It's all about finding what works best for you and your message.
That's such a great point. So as we wrap up this amazing deep dive, I just want to say thank you to our expert for being such an amazing guide through the world of sentence structure. And to our listeners, thank you for joining us on this journey. We hope you've learned something new and that you'll, keep exploring the power of language.
It's been a pleasure. Happy writing, everyone.